Meghan Markle at Paris Fashion Week, our last look. Now, Meghan, the white on white Messiah gown, or some people call it the toilet paper gown. Then there was the black Diana dress.
I mean, is this not Zoolander? Watch the strutting. She is strutting, guys. Strutting. And then looking back, making sure you get the back half as she awkwardly sits in there right now.
Now, let's have a look at Meghan Markle being weird and inauthentic. Here she is swanning around like she's Queen Cersei in Game of Thrones. And let's have a look at this rather awkward encounter with Pier Paolo Piccioli.
They say the crown never slips twice, but in Paris, Meghan Markle didn't just drop hers. She let it crash and no one even cared enough to pick it up. From a distance, it looked flawless. Cameras were flashing like fireworks, crowds were screaming her name, and Meghan was strutting through Paris in sky-high black heels like she owned every inch of that runway.
She walks in giddy, and people have put those clips side by side of her walking into the event with a black dress on and her walking in with a white dress on, and she does the exact same pose. Her arm is in the same place if you compare the two.
This was supposed to be her big comeback, her royal redemption. Every flick of her hair, every perfect grin, every exaggerated pose screamed one thing loud and clear: I'm still the star. But behind the velvet curtains of Balenciaga, the air shifted. The tension was so heavy you could almost taste it. Stylists, assistants, and makeup artists who normally buzzed with excitement suddenly went dead silent. The moment Meghan stepped in, it wasn't confidence. It was chaos, cloaked in calm.
Let's have a look at this rather awkward encounter with Pier Paolo Piccioli. He's the creative director of Balenciaga.
One insider whispered, "It didn't feel like diva energy. It felt like a storm walked in." Even veteran photographers, used to A-list tantrums, froze up, unsure how close they should even dare to get. Outside, the cameras told a sparkling fairy tale. Inside, though, something darker was unfolding.
She walks in like the exact same walk, and it's almost like that's how she prepared it and that's how she did it. She's like, this is fashion week and this is how I have to be.
The truth was brutally different. Conversations froze mid-sentence, and whispers started slicing through the air like knives. One stylist muttered, "It's not her attitude, it's her aura." Tense, heavy, and strangely off-putting. People moved around her like she carried a warning sign. Too close, and you might regret it. Normally, high-profile editors fight for selfies, angles, or even a 5-second chat.
Oh yes, that was awkward. Let's have another look at it.
But this time, they kept their distance. The space around Meghan felt empty, like an invisible barrier had formed. Paris thrives on authenticity, and every insider there knew it. This wasn't confidence anymore. It felt calculated. Someone murmured that her smile looked rehearsed, her movements too polished, like she was acting for invisible cameras. And Paris doesn't do fake. The city judges with its eyes, not its applause.
Meghan, you don't belong there, and you're a mean girl, and no, fashion week's not like that.
I think you are right.
The atmosphere was thick, almost courtroom-like, as if everyone silently weighed her every blink, every pose, every carefully crafted grin. What should have been her dazzling reunion with the fashion elite had turned into a quiet trial by stares. The cold glances, the hushed gossip, the polite but distant smiles, they spoke louder than any roar of approval could. And the worst part?
The misery of others. But I think you're right for multiple reasons. I think you're absolutely right that she felt she did not belong there. And she knows it.
This was only the beginning, because if the backstage chill felt cold, the storm waiting outside was absolutely freezing. Just when it seemed Meghan Markle might survive the icy silence backstage, a brand new scandal started bubbling up. And this one was far bigger than a fashion misstep. The brand she was representing, Balenciaga, had only recently clawed its way out of global outrage over controversial campaign imagery that left a bitter taste across the industry.
Let's bring in celebrity and royal commentator Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, Meghan Markle has come under fire for attending the Balenciaga fashion show after the brand sustained enormous reputational damage for producing.
And there was Meghan, smiling, waving, basking in the spotlight, and accepting praise as Humanitarian of the Year. The timing couldn't have been worse. The fashion world didn't miss the irony for a second. Editors whispered into their phones, stylists exchanged uncomfortable looks, and within hours, social media caught fire. Comment sections flooded with disbelief. People couldn't reconcile the image of a protector with her being tied to a brand still haunted by scandal. One insider quietly asked, "How can she preach compassion while fronting that label?" The contradiction hit hard. In Paris, where image is everything and authenticity is sacred,
Are twice her height. We know she's got an issue with her height. It's obvious. The practiced Zoolander walk, where we're not even blinking. We're like nothing's moving except our legs.
that clash didn't go unnoticed. Eyes that once watched her with admiration were now watching with suspicion. What was meant to be a glamorous comeback was quickly turning into a public relations nightmare, and Meghan didn't even seem to realize it yet. This wasn't just about bad optics, it was a full-blown credibility test. The whispers backstage weren't about dress cuts or shoe heights anymore. They were about ethics, values, and judgment. Some insiders said the tension was so thick that people started trading glances like,
I mean, it looks luxurious, but literally it looks out like she's walking out in her PJs, and not sexy PJs. These are pajama PJs or PJs you wear like when you're down in the dumps, it's your time in the month, something like that. This is what she's wearing.
did she really show up for this brand? As Meghan posed confidently for every flash, it felt like no one dared tell her that the room had already turned against her. By the end of the night, the buzz had completely flipped.
Let's watch this on X here because there's so much breaking. Meghan also just left her hotel, and I came to actually a very sinister conclusion about part of this trip, really.
No one was talking about the new Balenciaga collection anymore. Every conversation was about Meghan's tone-deaf appearance. Her glossy confidence suddenly looked out of touch. Social media exploded within hours. TikTok edits, Instagram memes, and long comment threads were calling out the obvious contradiction. How could someone who speaks about compassion and care align herself with a brand still shadowed by scandal? In Paris, image isn't just important, it's sacred.
Disturbing ads featuring children. What do you make of this whole saga?
One wrong move can erase months of careful planning, and Meghan had just made a colossal one. Whispers of hypocrisy echoed louder than the music, spreading through the venue like perfume in the air. Her comeback moment was crumbling, and nobody backstage seemed interested in helping her pick up the pieces.
She doesn't know who her real self is, but she's definitely trying to find one. And of course, Meghan Markle is willing to do anything like this. She is desperate for attention, and you just get the sense again.
And just when people thought the controversy had peaked, a bizarre and far more personal rumor started swirling through the crowd. According to insiders, something about Meghan's presence that night wasn't just cold or intimidating. It carried an unusual aura, something people couldn't quite describe or ignore.
We'll get to the conclusion at some point for Harry and Meghan, where Harry will claim there was another person in their relationship, and that person is Marcus Anderson, who is there.
Multiple sources described it as a mix of stress, nerves, and too much perfume. One insider even joked, "You can fix makeup, but you can't fix that." Whether it was truth or pure exaggeration, the rumor spread like wildfire. In the world of high fashion, perception isn't just important, it's currency. Even the smallest hint of awkwardness or discomfort doesn't stay hidden. It gets magnified, replayed, and whispered about 1,000 times over.
Children were posed with teddy bears dressed in bondage-style gear. It was predatory.
And that night, Meghan wasn't just the topic. She was the entire conversation. People backstage reportedly started discussing her energy more than the show itself. Editors who normally trip over themselves for celebrity access quietly drifted away. Stylists exchanged knowing looks, unsure how to navigate the tension. Some said it felt like Meghan carried an invisible cloud with her, a strange intensity that made people hesitate before stepping too close. The irony wasn't lost online either. Within hours, clips of the rumor were circulating, edited over her flawless runway photos, dripping with sarcasm.
Especially with the appearance at her hotel and everything. I'm very curious if she's staying at the Ritz, because when I saw this latest picture, I couldn't help but think, oh, is she trying to get her hooks into Harry deeper by recreating?
One viral post read, "She's untouchable, literally. In Paris, you can be bold, you can even be scandalous, but you can't make the room go cold." And by the end of the night, that's exactly what happened. The city that once adored her charm now seemed to watch her from a distance, quietly questioning what had changed. It wasn't the Balenciaga designs that stole the headlines. It was Meghan herself. The whispers about her aura, her tension, her so-called stress perfume completely eclipsed the fashion show. And for someone who built her image on grace, confidence, and influence, that kind of backstage gossip can be career poison.
And Meghan Markle is accepting an award as Humanitarian of the Year on Thursday for protecting children online. She shouldn't be promoting a brand accused of predatory behavior. How are you protecting children?
But if the backstage chaos wasn't enough, the real storm began the moment Meghan left the Balenciaga event. Word spread that her car had driven through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. the very same place forever linked to Princess Diana's final night in 1997. At first, many called it coincidence, but in Paris, coincidences are rarely believed.
Inappropriate behavior towards them. And it wasn't just the teddy bear ad. There was their spring 2023 campaign.
For years, Meghan's admiration for Diana has been well documented. The similar poses, the repeating outfits, the subtle gestures meant to echo the late princess's legacy. So, when this detail surfaced, critics pounced. How could she not know where she was? One journalist questioned. Then came the internet frenzy.
Court case on images of minors, along with disturbing artwork and books. So I think, to promote this.
TikTok edits popped up within minutes, pairing footage of Meghan's car gliding through Paris with old clips of Diana's motorcade, set to eerie, suspenseful music. Comment sections were flooded with speculation, theories, and disbelief. To many, it no longer looked like chance. It looked like choreography.
It's a couple of days old, but I've got to ask, right? As soon as I saw Meghan Markle walking out of the Balenciaga.
And just like that, her Paris trip went from glamorous to unsettling in record time. The reactions hit instantly, and they split people right down the middle. Some fans called it a heartfelt tribute, a symbolic nod to the woman Meghan has admired for years.
Weren't they the people who made some pretty weird ads a couple of years ago? I mean, just roll
totally
on.
Exploitative of young children.
Yeah.
Others, though, saw something far less innocent, an uncomfortable attempt to insert herself into Diana's legacy. Parisians, fiercely protective of Diana's memory, were outraged that anyone would even flirt with such imagery. Local tabloids wasted no time publishing cutting headlines questioning Meghan's motives. Meanwhile, international outlets treaded carefully, asking if the drive through the tunnel was pure coincidence or an intentional photo opportunity gone wrong.
Saunter and all the rest of it as she was leaving the fashion show, that being Meghan Markle.
Okay. The reason Giselle is Giselle.
Backstage, the tension grew thicker. Insiders whispered not about fashion anymore, but about obsession. It's not about couture, it's about rewriting Diana's story, one editor murmured to a colleague. And she's doing it one staged moment at a time. In Paris, every gesture means something. Every symbol tells a story.
Will not be able to tell at all how hard she's trying. It's effortless. She's Giselle. Same with Cindy Crawford. Linda Evangelista. I'm going through the 90s super.
And that single car ride through one of the city's most recognizable tunnels turned what should have been a triumphant fashion comeback into a viral moral debate. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't being photographed for her outfit. She was being dissected for her intentions. The so-called tunnel moment didn't just spark gossip, it exposed Meghan's biggest contradiction yet.
Supermodels, because these modern day influencers are painful. But I will say, same thing for like a Kendall Jenner. She walks out and you don't see her.
For years, she's built her brand around being misunderstood, claiming she's endlessly chased by the media. But now, critics were asking a tougher question. What if she's the one carefully crafting the chase? Meghan had long positioned herself as the modern-day Diana, a woman misunderstood, under pressure, standing tall beside her husband as the world watched her struggle.
Sick and twisted. That is the reaction to Meghan Markle's video of herself driving through the streets of Paris, very, very close to where her mother-in-law died in a car accident.
Prince Harry, always loyal, stood by as proof of her pain and resilience. But the whispers in Paris reminded everyone of one uncomfortable truth. The very network that aired her emotional Oprah interview, CBS, was the same one that once turned Diana's private turmoil into television ratings gold. The irony was almost too sharp to ignore. Commentators and royal insiders started asking the questions no one wanted to say out loud. How can someone condemn media exploitation yet work hand in hand with the same machine that once cashed in on Diana's story?
The one that she and her husband constantly cite as a danger to Meghan Markle, the one that Prince Harry obviously has.
Online, old 1997 news headlines about Diana began resurfacing, spliced with Oprah interview clips from 2021.
Meghan Markle is sitting there in a car, putting her feet up, congratulating herself on a job well done. And she's even today trying to walk back.
Together, they painted a haunting picture, not of coincidence, but of contradiction. One viral post summed it up perfectly. She blames the tabloids for Diana's tragedy, yet hands the cameras that same power today. It was cold, direct, and devastatingly true. Backstage at Paris Fashion Week, the conversation wasn't about clothes anymore. It was about credibility. Insiders were whispering about ethics, branding, and judgment. Meghan's Paris appearance had turned into a masterclass in how public perception can flip overnight. Her image as a humanitarian clashed painfully with the choices she was making right before everyone's eyes. Paris, the city that worships authenticity, saw right through the performance.
But I'm sorry, Meghan. Unfortunately for you, you can't walk this back. And that is because Meghan Markle and her husband have made such a huge deal about Diana that you...
To the world outside, she still looked flawless, glowing, confident, untouchable. But behind the scenes, the cracks were spreading fast. The tension, the contradictions, the subtle hypocrisy, it was all too visible. And in a city that thrives on meaning and symbolism, that kind of inconsistency doesn't fade easily. It lingers.
Trying so hard. Now, the sisters of Kendall Jenner, you do. But these supermodels of today make it look effortless, and that's why your eyes are glued to...
By the third day of Fashion Week, the energy had shifted completely. Meghan Markle wasn't the talk of admiration anymore. She had become the topic of quiet avoidance. Designers who once fought for her presence were suddenly too busy. Editors looked away. Celebrities who usually circle the front row didn't even glance her way. Stylists whispered that seats magically filled up the second she appeared.
When you're just admiring their beautiful form and their beautiful fashion, and you're like, oh, hashtag goals. It doesn't work for you to...
Paparazzi lenses caught her standing elegantly in the lobby, cameras flashing, but the story they told was cold, poised, polished, but completely alone. Social media tore it apart. Side-by-side comparisons popped up everywhere. Meghan in borrowed Balenciaga, next to Rihanna glowing in custom couture, Zendaya embraced by Valentino, Kim Kardashian surrounded by creative directors.
Shoulders back, breasts out, headlights going, head up, and try to look as bitchy as possible. And stride, stride, stride.
The captions were vicious. One of these women was invited. Insiders claimed this wasn't just about optics, it was strategic. A quiet, deliberate distancing had begun. Celebrities were allegedly warned not to get too close, while stylists whispered that PR managers were sending out discreet messages. Being seen near her right now could be risky. In an industry powered by alliances and image, that's the coldest kind of rejection.
That is what the kids call a sweaty try-hard. It's obvious. I can see you're trying. I feel uncomfortable. I have kind of secondhand embarrassment for you.
Paris doesn't reward desperation. It punishes it. And despite Meghan's flawless smiles and rehearsed confidence, the message from the city's elite was painfully clear. She wasn't part of the inner circle anymore. The borrowed designer pieces, the subtle empty spaces beside her, the polite but distant stares, every detail became part of an unspoken language, one she couldn't charm her way through.
Those findings were never released publicly. Officials confirmed a review had been completed, but they kept the details sealed to protect the privacy of those involved. Prince William's been talking a lot lately about how he'll be a different type of monarch.
Her appearance stopped being about fashion or humanitarian prestige. It became a lesson in how fast influence can slip. The talk wasn't about her beauty or her elegance anymore. It was about the quiet isolation surrounding her every move. Paris, the city that once embraced her sparkle, had turned ice cold. And when the runway lights finally dimmed and the cameras were packed away, the real aftermath began to unfold.
Maybe he will give us the results of the Meghan Markle Mean Girl investigation once he's king.
Meghan's Paris comeback had ended not with applause, but with silence, the kind that says everything without a single word. Doors that once swung open at her arrival now stayed firmly shut. Brand meetings that had been planned with excitement were suddenly postponed or rescheduled. And everyone knew what that really meant. Insiders whispered to Page Six that after Meghan's chilly reception at Balenciaga,
because Meghan has made a huge stand with Harry about internet safety. And if internet safety for children is a huge platform, in fact, you have a whole organization.
No one in Paris wanted to take the risk of being tied to her name. She'd become untouchable, but not in the glamorous way she once imagined. In the world of fashion, power depends on perception, and Meghan's had just taken a serious hit. Those whispered side eyes backstage, the hesitant smiles, the empty seats. Together, they told one story loud and clear. Her influence had faded. One stylist even admitted,
and yes, obviously, the directors and stuff have changed hands, the fashion directors, and I totally get that. But there still is an ugly taste in people's mouths because not everybody changes. And that somebody within the organization let it get that far that that ad campaign came out.
Nobody wants to be the one who bets on her again, not after Paris. Even her diehard supporters started to sense the shift. Her Instagram posts, once flooded with heart emojis and praise, now drew sarcastic comments and mocking memes. Screenshots of her borrowed couture and empty front row chairs spread across social media like wildfire. Paris had spoken, and the verdict was ice cold.
And people didn't see anything wrong with it. I mean, of course, fashion, much like Hollywood, is a cesspool of debauchery, basically.
In a city that worships authenticity and power, Meghan's charm had stopped working. The sparkle was gone, and worse, people were finally saying it out loud. TikTok blew up overnight. Hashtags like #ParisExposed flooded the platform, showing clips and edits that documented Meghan's quiet isolation in real time.
In so many ways, like, people don't think about the impact of something like this ad campaign and what it means. That Meghan is totally willing to overlook it and just still support the brand.
Every camera flash, every empty glance, every awkward silence became part of a viral timeline the whole world could watch unfold. But the fallout didn't stop at fashion. Hollywood insiders started whispering too. Executives and producers who once saw Meghan as a guaranteed headline were suddenly second-guessing her bankability. Streaming platforms and studios that once lined up for partnerships were now hesitating, careful not to be the next ones caught in her controversy.
About her, because Meghan, of course, is always willing to throw away her principles for money. She's always willing to do that. This woman is only about the money, only about the freebies. She has proven this again and again and again.
If Paris, the global capital of glamour, influence, and image, had turned its back on her, what did that mean for her wider career? For a woman who built her brand on elegance, control, and admiration, the silence that followed was deafening. Paris hadn't just rejected her outfit, it had quietly rejected her relevance.
And that somebody within the organization let it get that far that that ad campaign came out and people didn't see anything wrong with it. I mean, of course, fashion, much like Hollywood, is a cesspool.
The city gave her attention, but not the kind she wanted. Every move that once screamed power now felt hollow, like a spotlight that had burned out too soon. For someone who's always thrived on being seen as untouchable, this new silence was the harshest punishment of all. So, what do you think? Has Meghan Markle finally lost her shine in the city of style? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives. See you in the next one.